Hello, and thank you so much for listening to Voice of Uganda Radio. Wherever you may be, it may be morning, evening, or afternoon, but we thank you so much for being a part of the American Connection this morning and for tuning in for the program. It always means a lot to us that you take 2 hours out of your day to sit and be a little more informed about some of the things happening here, not only in the United States, but how some of the things are happening and progressing forward there in Uganda as well. So I appreciate you all for being on board and being a part of the program today. Let me just say as a reminder to you also, those of you who are members of FADU, great. Those of you who have not gone out and registered yet, please continue to go out there and continue to register. Our numbers are growing out there daily, and we really appreciate all of those of you who are becoming members. After a while, probably soon here, shortly, we'll make announcements on the radio programs here at Voice Uganda Radio. We're going to be sending out an email just to confirm all our members, and we will make announcements. If you do not get that email and you have registered to become a member, you may have to go back out and register, or you may have to go through your junk mail and make sure that the email was not sent out there and you didn't confirm. Let me just say once more that when you go to faddu.org, FADDU.org, and you become a member and you sign up, it will send you an email confirmation back to your email. Some of you, it may go in your junk mail, and some it may go into your regular email box. Make sure you click on that website, and when that website opens up, it says, "Congratulations, you've registered and become a member of FADU." If you don't remember ever doing that step, you need to go back and register again. Once we send our first round of emails out to all the FADU members, if you don't get an email at that time, you'll know that you need to go back out and register also. So because we want to make sure that no one falls between the cracks, and we want to make sure that everybody understands that last piece is the most important piece, because that confirmation back to you links us with you, and it tells you congratulations that you have now registered successfully and become a member of FADU. So we appreciate all the memberships. We appreciate the way that that's growing. We appreciate your interest in us here at Voice of Uganda Radio. The conversations get a little heated over the weekend. There's so much to talk about. There's so much going on there in Uganda. And to my American audience, let me just say welcome aboard this morning as well. Thank you so much for being a part of Voice of Uganda Radio and tuning in with us from week to week also, just to understand and embrace what's going on there in Uganda. Because those of you that are in Uganda and those of you in the diaspora, it's just really important that the more people that we link up with us, the better off we are. And I know that I don't just have an American listening audience. I know that there's probably people in UK, Canada, Australia, Japan, Germany, Switzerland, the Netherlands, and other countries throughout the world that they have members we have listeners who may not be Ugandans also, but they have tuned in to be a part of the conversation of what's going on and keeping everybody on top of the situations as they unfold there in Uganda. So thank you all so much for being a part. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your day. And you are really appreciated here at Voice of Uganda Radio. So thank you very much. I wanted to, on Sunday we talked a little bit about what happens when people become numb to what's going on in their society. Numbingness has been a part of generations of people at different times in life through struggles and things that have happened and things that have taken place. A lot of what's going on in Uganda now can also be contributed to that. Where there's a numbing that's going on because the pain, the frustration, and the anxiety of what's happening there in your country to your fellow countrymen is so hard to bear sometimes that we just kind of move ourselves away from it. But this is a time now that the struggle in Uganda is very real. This is a time now that people are gathering together and coming on board for a greater change and a greater cause. And this is not a time for the weak of heart, but this is a time to gain strength from those around you or from wherever you can to continue to move forward. Since the beginning of time, even from the biblical days, to the race to colonize the New World, to situations that are happening in the Middle East today and in Uganda in today's society. There have been those who have betrayed their people and their nations. Betrayal has been a large part of the rise and fall of many things. But in the end, not everyone has a chance to enjoy the fruit of their betrayal for long. The biggest betrayal of all, one can go back to the Bible, to Judas, who was one of the 12 apostles, who was the apostle that betrayed Jesus. And we know how that story ended up. And so today we're going to go to some of the current events and some of the things that are happening there in Uganda. We're going to intertwine it with some of the U.S. and some of our government standings on some of these things. And we're going to talk about how Uganda can move forward. But everyone needs to understand that the power that has been given to the sitting president there in Uganda has been given to him by the people. Not all the people, but it's been given to him by the people. And when I say not all the people, because we understand from talking to Anna Deck and others who have called into the programs over the weekends, we understand that there is a lot of betrayal against the Ugandan people by their own people. And it's unfortunate. It's very, very unfortunate. And it's a sad place for not only the Ugandan people, but those who are put in those positions to be in, because maybe they don't understand the power in which they're feeding into the sitting president and the power in which they give him, not even understanding, like we have talked about many a times on Freedom at Hand, that you may be safe today, but you will not always be safe. We know that now from just a lot of the economic problems that Uganda is having right now, where the military, the police force, the MPs, teachers, those that have government jobs, the country is just literally shutting down because there is no money to pay anyone. And I've often said on both of my programs that it may not be you today, but eventually it will be you, because corruption it has a long arm, and it may not affect you in the moment, but it will eventually affect you. And for the sitting president to think that it is okay for him to lead and govern the way that he does, and that as long as him and his family are provided for, he doesn't really care about what happens to you and your families. So we want to get into the hearts of those who think that they are still going to get something out of this government, and that their portrayal and the way in which they're treating Ugandan people, that they feel that this is okay when it is not. One of the things that Dr. Martin Luther King said in one of his speeches is that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And that is true. And we're going to talk about that and break that out a little bit, because what our sitting president here in the United States, Barack Obama, added to that by saying it does not bend on its own. It bends because each of us, in our own way, put our hands on that arc, and we bend it in the direction of justice. So for that statement to be made is a beautiful statement, but the way our sitting president even makes it more, it puts more of an impact on it, is to say it may bend and lead towards justice, but what are we doing as individuals to make sure that it bends towards justice? We all have a role to play. And I think that sometimes we get so caught up in the emotions of, like I said, the numbing of what happens, that we forget that we are a part of that justice. Sometimes people think they have to be in powerful positions in order to make a change, but you don't have to be in powerful powerful positions in order to make a change where you're at. Look at the people around you. Look at what the people around you are doing, are starting to say, are starting to form, are starting to become, and become a part of that. We've talked about it time and time again here on Voice of Uganda Radio, the need to unite, because in uniting, that makes us very, very strong, and it makes us very, very powerful. So my question for you, and something for you to think about during this program today, is if we are all a part of that arc that bends towards justice for each and every one of us, what is our part? What are we doing? And do we have our hands in the pot to say that we are part of the change of what's taking place and what's happening? It's interesting because the Freedom United Front has been putting some interesting articles and some interesting things out there for us to ponder and to think about. And one of the things that I think was very reassuring for me to hear here in the American soil, and for those of you that are in the diaspora, is that the sympathy that is starting to form from the military and from the police forces. And even though these sympathies towards the Ugandan citizens and a lot of the things that are happening to them is starting to form, of course, the government is angry. Of course, the government is upset about this. And we shouldn't even say the government, because the government, we've already established, is one person, is one man who's the sitting president right now. Because he is not happy with the situation starting to change. Even his military and even some of those in his police force are being arrested for showing any type of sensitivity towards sympathy for the Ugandan people. But this makes me feel good because this shows hope. This shows me that everyone is not on board with what's happening in that country. This shows me that even though these people hold jobs and even though these people hold positions, they're starting to say, this is not right. I don't want to be a part of this. I want to start to separate myself from and move away from this. But what is happening when this happens within the police force and within the military is that the government has set up to make sure the sitting president has spies. And he has spies everywhere. He has spies. I mean, and these people, they're spying for him, but they're betraying their fellow countrymen. And they're literally betraying themselves as well. Because betrayal doesn't just stop with where it is and where you're forming it at. It bleeds into everything after a while. That the betrayal of others becomes the betrayal to oneself. These are the questions we have to start asking ourselves if we're going to help to move the country forward, because everyone knows that the 2016 elections are not going to work there in Uganda. Even here in the United States of America, we understand true democracy has to work in the way your elections play out as well. And within the United States and within the American people, if we're unhappy with any course of that, well, there's a lot of people for us to choose from so that we vote and make sure that we send the country in the direction in which we want it to go. But when that is taken away, which this sitting president continues day after day and time again to take away from all the citizens, not just those he's oppressing, but those that are even in his government. When he starts to take that away, there is the country continues down on a downward spiral. And those who feel like they are doing justice by betraying other Ugandans or spying for this sitting president are only bringing more and more harm, not to just themselves, not to their families, but to the country as a whole. And, at some point, it gives me a great sense of hope and prosperity for the country to see that the MPs are starting to speak up. The universities, the teachers, and you can tell that from all of the jobs that have been created or not have been created, and the way that unions are forming and people are standing up and people are stepping aside to say, we will not show up to work. We will not show up to teach. We will not show up to do anything. All of those things are starting to show us that people are starting to start the conversations and start the fight towards justice, towards that arc that bends towards justice. It only takes one or two people to say something is not right and stand firmly in that, and I guarantee you other people will get on board to say there's something about this, that they are right to say that this is not right. Even in the face of betrayal, even in the face of spies, you still have to continue to rise up against that, because you don't know that what you do may eventually bring those spies, or may eventually bring those who are betraying the country now over onto the side of the people. Because we know the side of the people is greater than the side of the sitting president. And we know that his frustration grows daily. And he continually does things to cause disharmony within the country, continually. Even now with the things that are happening with in the UK, because the FUF is stationed there in UK, in London, that now we understand and know that Ugandans who are in the country that are calling their family members in London are being arrested and put in safe houses and tortured. And some of them for no reason at all. Now, I do understand that the government is monitoring some of the phone numbers because they know the FUF and they know people and numbers and whatever, but they still don't have the right to do what they're doing to the Ugandan people. Because now you're shutting down. I had shared a couple of weeks ago about even those of us in the diaspora, how we would eventually be affected by what's going on in the country. That even we are not safe. We live outside of Uganda. We support our family members inside of Uganda, but we are not even safe because this sitting president has the control to shut down even the things that we do. And when innocent family members start to be hurt, when innocent family members start to become victims of this system in which this man is continuing to try to keep in force through this regime, we all have to, the silence has to stop, and the betrayal and the spying has to stop, because we have to understand at some point that even these things are not right. And at what point do those who spy for the government and who betray their own family members and their own people to stand on the side of this government, at what point, what has to happen to make you understand that what you are doing is not justice? It's not justified in any way, politically, economically, or for any reason. When you have innocent people who are connecting to their family members in the UK and all throughout, Europe and London, and they're being tortured and arrested and put in safe houses and questioned as to why they're doing what they're doing, we all start to suffer when that starts to happen. And eventually this government will cut all of those in the diaspora in the UK and throughout that region. You will be cut off from your family members there in Uganda. And you won't be cut off from them because you can't call them. You will be cut off from them because of the fear that they have for retribution that's going to happen to them inside the country and inside the walls of Uganda. So the sitting president has done everything within his power to control and keep everything quiet within the country so that it doesn't spread out into all of the free world, the United States included in that, but all of the free world. He has done everything within his power to keep it contained within the walls of Uganda. But he's having trouble doing that simply because everyone is starting to unite. Everyone is starting to get on board. People who used to stand on his side and vote and do whatever they needed to do to keep him in power and to keep him moving are no longer doing those things, but starting to show him a cold shoulder. And because of those things, he's starting to reach outwardly to those of us in the diaspora to make it harder for us to say, I do have control and I have control over your families. And these are innocent people who have done nothing against this government, who have lived out their lives, who have tried to obey to the best of their abilities, who have tried to, to hold on to their own stability so that they can continue to thrive and take care of their families. But he's making it more and more and more impossible for these things to happen. And those who are siding on the side of the government, spying for this sitting president, and turning against your own fellow Ugandans to feed him information to continue to give him that power, it is, you are in harm's way, just like all of the Ugandan people. I've talked about this a couple of times on Freedom at Hand on my program on Sunday, when I talked about no one in the walls of Uganda is safe. No one in the walls of Uganda is safe. And even right now, you may be helping this president, and you may continue to feed the flame to keep him going in that direction. But if at any point in time you turn a cold shoulder and you decide yourselves that this is not right because maybe someone in your family has been hurt or been harmed, you will mean the same. You will have no meaning to this man, just like the people of Uganda. I would hate to think that President Barack Obama here in the United States of America would have such a cold shoulder towards the American people, that he would separate himself from the emotional baggage that we all carry day to day. A sitting president has to be a part of the structure of what happens to move that country forward. Does the sitting president do anything for the youth there in Uganda? I don't think he does. Does the presidents throughout the free worlds and here in the United States and in America do things for their youth? Exactly, they do. They set up programs. They understand the youth is what will lead the country forward. They pay into education. They pay into the schools to make sure that things are running correctly and properly. They invest in educational programs that will advance this generation farther than the generation before it. They're making sure that there are going to be jobs. They're making sure that there's going to be things to continue the growth forward for the youth. Has this government in Uganda done that for the youth? I should say that he hasn't. Even his youth minister makes comments about the youth there in Uganda that is very, very unprofessional and does nothing to build up the youth there, but only to bring them down. And now, even now, the youth are starting to turn against this government. I had a caller on Sunday that talked about the youth that have known nothing other than this government, that they were born during the generation of this sitting president. And they know nothing of true democracy because he's hidden all that from them. Anything that's anti this president, he has made sure to bring silence to it. In the universities, in the schools, in the streets with the public management bill, anywhere that he can bring silence to it, he will, because he understands that he needs to keep control of the youth, which we understand and know is 50% of the Ugandan citizens right now. 50% are the youth. And if he can keep them in control, then he controls a large number of the people. However, the youth are starting to turn against him. And he understands this and he knows this. And now this creates a great fear for him. And he creates a fear because that 50% margin is becoming less and less and less. And I'm happy to read about things like that. And I'm happy to see these things because, when the youth are being raped, when the youth are being sold into sex trafficking and slavery into other countries, thinking that the government has assured them of jobs outside of the country, when there are no jobs, but what is actually happening, that the government is becoming a part of slave trading. The youth, he talks about the careers in which they're studying there at the university and how them and their parents should be ashamed of themselves, and some of the degrees that they are getting should be certificates. They should not even be degrees, because what does it do to help move the country forward? So he bashes them for even standing up and trying to educate themselves to make a difference in their community and in their lives later on. We know from things that Anna Adek has shared that he has spies in the university. Whenever the professors start to talk about anything that's anti the sitting president, that information gets back to him. All of a sudden, that professor is no longer there, has been dismissed from his position, or someone else comes in to lecture and teach those classes. Youth are getting out of school and they have jobs nowhere. They are the most unemployed if you took all of the youth in Uganda who have degrees who are unemployed right now, their unemployment rate would be larger than the free world. If you put the unemployment scale together for every country globally, that rate would be higher than any. So the youth, yes, I know that some of the callers are saying that they're turning to drugs, they're turning to alcohol, they're turning to all of these things. It's to numb themselves from the reality of what's happening in their lives. But let's look at the youth that are not doing that are continuing to fight for their education, that are continuing to stand up against the government with Black Mondays and all of the other different things, handing out flyers on campuses about the government, change, what needs to be done. So let's not look at the handful that may be going in the direction that is not good for them, but let's look at the majority that are starting to make their voices heard and bring about a change, because I think what will happen with that is it's very contagious. And what I mean by contagious is if you look in any of the free world at any of the universities, especially here in the United States of America, students that rise up for things that they believe in on their campuses have made big differences, not only on their campuses, but in the governments and in laws being passed and in governments going back to revisit old laws to see how we can revamp these things for the century in which we live. Because that's what needs to happen. So the youth holds a large key in what happens there in Uganda. We understand and we know that, but let's not beat up on the youth, because we do understand that there are a few, and that's in any given country, that may not be doing the things they need to do to lead the country forward. But my hope is that those who are will become contagious enough that others will follow suit. So this sitting president has a lot to worry about right now, because the people are rising up and they're rising up against him and they're making their voices heard. And they're doing it in such a way that it cuts down on the violence to the degree that they're not putting themselves, they're no longer putting themselves in harm's way. Because we know that anytime they try to go to work, anytime they try to show up to do anything, you have these huge army trucks coming up, tear gassing people and whipping people in the streets and doing all of these things, which are very unjust, for no other reason that this president wants the people to know that you obey and do as I say, otherwise you will be tortured. And we use you as examples as to the rest of the country, what will happen to you if you do not obey and move in the direction in which he wants the country to go. So now you have people there are strikes all over the place where people are not showing up to work and people are not being involved in social activities and people are staying away from things. So now what happens? They're being arrested in their homes, in the places that is their safe haven. I don't know about any of you, but when I walk into my house and I lock my door, I lock myself out from the world and everything that is happening in the world. It's my safe haven. It's where I come to be comforted, and I live in peace with my families and I dwell there in a comfort zone, in a safety zone. But when you have the police, and we know, not just from the conversation on Voice of Uganda Radio, but a lot of what we are reading now in the media from other outlets that are still courageous enough to print the information that needs to get out to the rest of the world. And I commend them right now. I commend them in a great way for still making themselves known and making themselves heard, that even to the point that they could fall in harm's way, the information still has to get out. People need to know what's happening. There is no way we can continue to give this man the power that he has had. Yes, some of us may go through things that are horrendous and that we would not wish upon anyone at all. But we still have to continue at the end of the day to do these things that have to be done. We cannot give one man the power to rule the universe. And I say that because we are all over. Those in the diaspora are all over. And yet, one of the reports of something that he's thinking of doing there is shutting down the Foreign Exchange Bureau. Now, if that happens, we know how that would affect us, because our family members would literally starve or would not be able to pay their bills or not be able to do a lot of things if this indeed happened. And if this indeed happened, we need to all be united and on board to make our voices heard in wherever we live. Whether it be Canada, whether it be the United States of America, whether it be the UK, whether it be the Netherlands, no matter where we are collectively, we will have to stand and make our voices heard, because nothing can be shut off from the free world. Corruption in that country has already done that, and we know that the corruption in Uganda is in its worst form ever. The corruption in Uganda is starting to have a face. I think for so long it never had a face, so no one knew what it looked like. Everyone knew that it was happening, but people started to accept it, and that was it. And no one stood up against it, no one anything. But now it's starting to have a face, and the face of corruption is the sitting president. He can no longer hide behind the people who have shielded him for years and years, all of his 28 years in office. He can no longer sit behind those people for the protection that he's always been able to have, by constantly blaming others to the point of even them losing their positions and losing their jobs over something that he knew was his doing and was not their doing. And I'm happy to say that people are starting to recognize that this man is not out for them and their well-being, but only for his own. They have voted for him time and time again. They have passed laws. They have changed the constitution of the Republic of Uganda to such a degree that it doesn't even work for anyone anymore, not even them. They are allowing him to change it to such a degree that it no longer even protects them. It only protects him and his interests. One of the things that's going to happen under the new regime, when power changes hands there in Uganda, is the Constitution has to be revisited on a large scale. And not only, my hope is that under the new regime, that the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, although the guidelines and everything will be set up by the people of Uganda, they also need to look into the free world for help in structuring the Constitution back to its wholeness and the way that it needs to be as well. Because if we're talking about true democracy works when we all work together. The United States is only as strong as its allies, and those that we look to for comfort and for guidance and for their leadership abilities as well. Presidents, not only just our sitting president that's in office right now, Barack Obama, but all the succeeding presidents have gone and listened to other countries and other leaders, and we have indeed structured some of the way we live here in the United States of America from the ways that we have learned from some of our fellow countrymen. It's the way true democracy works. It's saying that my idea may be great today, but your idea building upon my idea makes it even greater. But the sitting president in Uganda right now listens to no one. He doesn't care about the opinion of anyone in Uganda. Even the people, I think it was stated that he has 84, 85 head leaders of state that are put there to advise him. And the comment was made that either he is not listening to them at all, or that they are not advising him properly. Okay, for those of us who know what's going on in Uganda right now, I would say that he is being advised, but his word is the final word. His say is the final say. And if that is the way the country is being governed, then that is the reason for a lot of the political and economic problems in which the country is having right now. The sitting president there in Uganda is listening to no one. Even his advisors that he has paid millions of the Ugandan shillings money that belongs to the Ugandan citizens out to these people, and he doesn't even listen to them. So why are they on the payroll? Why are they on the payroll? Every government, one of the things they do in their budget is to look to see what needs to be cut in the budget each and every year so that the budget can continue to thrive and the budget can continue to move forward. How much money are we bringing in, and how much money does it take to run the country? And it does not mean that you dip into every pocket of money that you set aside for other programs for your own good. You cannot do that. When you allocate monies out for programs, for payrolls, for whatever the purpose is that the budget is being set up, it doesn't mean that once you publish those numbers out to the World Bank or the United Nations or wherever it goes, that now you can go back and it's free for all. You can take money from wherever and put it wherever you want it to be, or pay people off in whatever way you need to. And the thing that's happened with this sitting president, from so much of the things that you're starting to read from all of the publishers that are able to put information out there on the government, the monies are drying up. There is no more money to bribe anyone. Maybe the bribery is when the new year's review comes around. That money that the country's getting in, that's where the bribery money will be. But that money, if he's doing that, then that money's already spent before it ever hits the country. Why would you tie the hands of those that are in the diaspora trying to help their families abroad? To shut off any means of any support that they can get so that you can make your point. You can get your point across. What president takes away from his people in that way and doesn't feed to the need of the people, that even if you're not, because we've already discussed on Voice of Uganda Radio, the economic growth in Uganda right now comes from those who are outside of the country in the diaspora. We understand and we know that if we shut off for 1 week and did not send one penny to Uganda, the country could collapse in a matter of hours, because that's how much money gets flooded into that country on a daily basis. And yet he is not responsible for a lot of the growth that is happening there in Uganda right now. I shared on the American Connection a while back, a few weeks back, where those in the diaspora have been studied time and time again by not only the United States, but the World Bank and the United Nations, because the monies that are flooded into these countries, you'd be number 5, an economic country of your own. That's a lot of power. And I think we forget about how much power we have here in the diaspora. Now, in saying that, are there spies? Are there traitors outside of the country that are living in the diaspora? I think there is. I don't think that all the spies and all of the traitors live in the walls of Uganda. And the reason I say that is because there's too much information on the outside that leaks back into the inside as well. There's too much information that the government is able to get, this sitting president is able to get his hands on, that makes you wonder how he's able to get his hands on some of this information. And those of you who are in the diaspora that have your freedom, and you live your lives in total peace and harmony with everyone around you, why would you not want that for everyone in the country? And why would you continue to feed into a government and make it powerful? Is it because it doesn't affect you because you're outside of the country? Then I go back to my earlier comment to say what I said. Eventually it comes back to affect all of us. Even if you go back and you look at Hitler, and we know Hitler he was a father of spies. He had spies, he had people everywhere that were his eyes and his ears. He had a committee that was loyal to him in every way. And within that committee, they had people under them that were loyal to them in every way. It made him powerful. It was what allowed him to have, one of the biggest movements against a people in history. And all for what? At the end of the day, because even those who were his allied, even those who fed him the information he needed, some of them were still tortured and killed themselves. And not just them, but their family members as well. So I say that to say, we sometimes in doing the things that you're doing and standing against a people who are trying to rise up against their government for the treatment of what's going on in their country, you're not safe either. I've said that time and time again, that no one is safe under this regime. No one, whether you're in the diaspora, whether you're in Uganda, no matter whether you're in leadership positions, whether you're in the government, whether you're in the military, or whether you're in the police force. No one is safe. And I would beg to differ. I think that those who are starting to show a sympathetic gesture towards the Ugandan people in the military and the police force that are starting to be arrested, I guarantee you that they are being turned in by people that they trusted. And those same people that they trusted that are turning their backs on them now, those people, you will be the next one in line. You will be the next one in line, because no one is going to be safe under the regime and the way that things are running now. So the only thing for the country to do is for the people of Uganda to unite, for those that are out in the diaspora to unite. The uniting is what makes everyone strong. Now, it is very, very unfortunate for those who are in the walls of Uganda, because for the police force, what's happening with the citizens in Uganda right now is what happened during apartheid in South Africa, during Nelson Mandela, when he was fighting for freedom and justice for the South Africans. And we know what that is. I mean, these people, the police came from traitors, from people who were feeding information to the police. And now, why were these people feeding information to the police? I have to say it was probably to protect themselves. But like we said, in the end, no one was protected. And we all understand and we know that to be true. If you go back through history and read about any of these things, you know that it never had a good outcome in any way at all, not even in South Africa. And because the people were no longer rebelling, and because the people were no longer out in the streets doing things, and the police could no longer whip them, tear gas them, torture them out in the streets, Uganda is doing the same thing that police force did. They went into people's homes and arrested them from their homes. Sometimes, and not often during broad daylight, a lot of times this happened in the middle of the night. Because honestly, what would have happened if they would have come and tried to do some of the things they were doing during broad daylight? People would have warned these people, and they could have taken off and ran from their villages or ran from their homes to safety. But when you sneak up on people in the middle of the night, chances are you're going to catch them sleeping, and there's not going to be a fight, and no one's going to be around, and you can pretty much do what you want to do. So this is what's happening to the Ugandan people, that now they are obeying everything that he's putting out there for them to obey, and yet he has now made the attempts to go into homes and take people from there and take them to safe houses and take them to these places or lock them up in jail. And mind you, a lot of these people are innocent people, just like in South Africa. You know, if you don't have all the pieces of the puzzle and you only have a couple of pieces, then that's not justice. Even in the United States of America, our law says you're innocent until proven guilty. A lot of people don't really think about that in America because it's just been the way of the American system for so long. But innocent until proven guilty says a lot. And it gives the person a lot of means and a lot of ways to protect themselves going forward, to prove that they are innocent. I don't think the Ugandan people are being given the rights of innocent until proven guilty. I think the law looks at them. I think the sitting president and the police force looks at them as guilty. And that's all they care about. And you can torture a person all you want. But if a person doesn't know anything and a person doesn't have information and a person is not doing anything wrong, then you're torturing an innocent person for no reason at all because there's information that you want this person to give you that they do not have. Innocent until proven guilty protects a lot of people. It protects a system. It gives true democracy to each and every person on the individual basis. Now, in the United States of America and even some other countries, there have been crimes that have been so horrific towards people that you're thinking, why are we even bothering? They know that they're guilty. But our system still says that they're innocent until proven guilty. And, you know, Uganda has, I mean, that is not that is not there for the Ugandan people. That is not there for the citizens of Uganda. So, you know, it's America. It's amazing. It's amazing the atrocities that are happening there, only because of one man's need to hold on to power. And I tell you, my fellow Ugandans, the more desperate he gets, the worse it's going to get. Because the situation, the way it is now, and all the information that has been put out there and all the things that are being shared, it is not going to get any better. For those of us in the diaspora or those at home, it's not going to get any better. Because the more and more desperate he gets, the more and more people will lose their lives. And we're talking about innocent people who have done nothing wrong. Have done nothing wrong. But a government decides to shut itself down and shut itself away from the rest of the world to handle its people in a way that it considers to be true democracy. But it's so visible, the deterioration of politics and economics there in Uganda. It's so visible, and it's visible everywhere. When you have a government that can no longer pay its people, that's visible deterioration. And if for no other reason, but those who are in those positions start to stand aside and say, we can't show up to work anymore if we're not getting paid, they alone can shut down the government. Because the sitting president is only as powerful as the people that stand behind him. And if those in Parliament decide to show up to work each and every day and they decide to stand for this president and continue to move him forward, then you're going to continue to have these problems. But I have stated it several times on this station that I think he will be the downfall of himself because he has not been smart with the way that he's handled things. And when you start to have people in high up in leadership positions start to turn away from you, you take the power away from him little by little by little until there is no more power and there's nothing that he can do. And when you start to take that power source away from him, he will crumble. But you have to stand together and you have to stand united. I'm going to go into an article that of some information that I read in the past few weeks of some stuff that has been printed there in Uganda about the sitting president and the government and some of the things that are happening there. But we're going to take a break here. We are rounding out our first hour here on the program. So we're going to go ahead and take a break here, and I hope you will stay tuned and come back with me for the second half of the American Connection. We'll be back in just a few minutes. You are listening to Voice of Uganda Radio, the mouthpiece of all Ugandans, wherever they may be, to voice their problems without fear of any retribution. The Voice of Uganda Radio works in sync with FADU, the Federalist Alliance of Democracy and Development in Uganda. FADU is an organization that was formed to work as a platform for all Ugandans at home and outside, to work synergistically to liberate our mother Uganda from the ruthless invaders that have sucked it dry. Therefore, FADU invites all able Ugandans to act now and save the Ugandan humanity that is being slaughtered, destroyed, and robbed by a few people unworthy to call themselves Ugandans. Many people are crying for action in Uganda as they languish in misery. FADU echoes their cries by making the loudest alarm to everyone to join FADU, not tomorrow or the next day, but today. The number to join is 408-904-7038. The email is info@fadu.org.
Slaves in Iraq, and tells the dramatic story of how some were rescued. Her report, which contains some disturbing material, starts with a phone call from a woman in an agonizing situation.
I'm scared. I came to Baghdad to work for the Americans.
A desperate phone call with a Ugandan woman trapped in Iraq. Mary's sick and she's been raped, but the people she works for won't allow her to leave.
Oh my God, the situation was very, very bad, and right now it's also bad because I'm very, very sick. I'm very sick. They used me, they raped me.
I'm Anna Cavell, and in this week's assignment on the BBC World Service, I've been looking into the story of 147 Ugandan women who've been lured to work in Iraq.
I begged and wept and cried and screamed, but they did nothing.
Promised high salaries and jobs working for Americans on the Allied bases, but when they arrived, they found they'd been sold to Iraqi families to work as maids. They were abused and even raped. Uganda has massive unemployment and low pay, so jobs abroad, even in war-torn countries like Iraq, are highly sought after. Tens of thousands of Ugandans have travelled to Iraq and Afghanistan. As well as opportunity, this jobs market has created the possibility of exploitation. I spoke to a woman called Prosy who only wanted to use her first name.
Uganda Veterans was advertising that they were taking girls to Iraq to work. They said working in supermarkets, receptions, depending on the papers you have. This was more paying. For Iraq it was more paying because they had promised $800. And in Tanzania I was working for $200. So I was like, this is a chance. I went there and I was recruited, and I was told we would go and work for Americans in Iraq. There are many Ugandans in Iraq working for Americans in those camps, the bases. When we reached Baghdad, really we were scared. We had to leave the plane running, and it was soldiers at the entrance of the plane. So they told us, run. We were running. They were speaking in their language. I think the word was ta, ta. Everyone was shouting. So we ran to the airport, and it was night. In the morning, that's when a certain man came. He was a short man. He was an Arab. He could not even speak English well. When we reached there, we found families waiting for us. And these people were Arabs. We asked that man, but we came to work for Americans. Are these Americans? The man said, no. Your company in Uganda deceived you. You're not going to work for Americans.
The women were told they had no choice but to go with the families. The agent in Baghdad said he'd bought each woman for $3,500, and they'd have to repay him that money if they wanted to leave.
We tried to refuse. Some girls started crying. Some girls refused to go. And then that man started beating some of us. He also warned us that if you try to escape, the military will kill you on the way. You will not even manage to escape. They will just kill you and burn you there. It was a time to say goodbye, really. We never thought we would see each other again.
Prosy and the group of 15 women she travelled with were just one wave of nearly 150 Ugandan women going to Iraq that year. This is the first time anyone directly involved with this story has spoken to the media.
So we reached the family. They were very happy to see me. It was a very, very big house. It had like more than 30 rooms. We were very rich. The house looked very nice with a lot of gold, a lot of decorations everywhere. So I worked for the first month. The problem I had was too much work. I didn't have time to rest. I can't work throughout from 5 to after midnight. So the man noticed that I wasn't happy. Said, my mother and my wife say you don't have to rest. We bought you with a lot of money. We paid a lot of money, and they said you people don't get tired. You don't get tired, you don't get sick. So you have to work. What they did to us was really slavery. There's a time they said they were going out. They left, and the man came back. And he started quarreling, you are mine, I bought you with money, you have to do what I want. And make sure you don't tell anyone, because I'll kill you. That is when he raped me. I felt so sad, and I had no way out. I really hated everything in the house. I even felt like I was getting sick. I felt like I was getting to vomit. I thought maybe this man had even got me pregnant. But I think it was a psychological torture maybe. Afterwards I saw my periods and that story was over.
After she was raped by her employer, Prosy began desperately thinking of a way to get out. Other Ugandan women across Baghdad were also looking for ways to escape, and some had managed to hide mobile phones under their clothes.
Anna, welcome again.
Thank you very much for having us. The garden looks lovely.
Sure?
Yes.
Thank you.
The fates of these women and 2 men were about to converge in an extraordinary way. Samuel Tamwesigye was one of 2,000 Ugandans hired to work as security guards on Camp Slayer, part of the massive American Victory Base complex in Baghdad. I'll leave it to Sam and the others involved to tell the next part of their remarkable story.
We were the first group of the people to Iraq. Iraq by then, it was full of fire. People were killing each other, so everybody was fearing to go to Iraq. One day I went to where we used to get food from. There came a friend of mine, so he told me that there are some Ugandans who are outside. They had our telephone numbers before they came here. Then I asked him, are they suffering or not? The man told me, yeah, they are telling us that they are suffering. They are trying to rape them. They are trying to beat them. They are working long hours. Their passports are confiscated. So many things. He gave me the telephone number of one lady. She's called Agnes. I called her. I introduced myself that I'm called Samuel. I'm from Uganda, but I'm here in Iraq. That I'm in a camp called VBC, Victory Base Complex. Let me know how you are suffering. At least I can see if I can get you out of that place. She told me that, please, I know you cannot do anything. The person who is taking care of me is trying to rape me, is beating me, is torturing me all the ways. I called her, please, can you please try to escape such that I can get you on the way? She said, no, they will kill me on the way. I said, okay. I told her that I will call you after like 2 hours. I was thinking, what can I do? The first thing, I went to my bedroom. I prayed God, please, I'm going to start this. Let me succeed it. Then from there, the first person to approach was Lieutenant Colonel Lockwood.
One day, two of the supervisors came in and said they needed to talk to me, and they looked really concerned. They had a Ugandan with them. So they came in and they started to explain to me that Samuel was saying that he had been in contact with some Ugandan women who were held in Baghdad, essentially in slave-like conditions, and wanted some assistance to be able to go rescue these women.
Now, I tried to communicate with that lady. She's called Agnes. Next day, I called her. I told her to try at least to escape from that house, because she had decided to die from there. Say, please, you know, you should not decide to die when you are still alive.
It was in the afternoon. I wasn't done with the work. Then they called me. They said, Agnes, do you know what is going to happen to you today? You're going to try by all means and escape from that family. I said, what? Are you joking or something? He said, no, I'm not joking. You're going to escape. My boss was there, a lady. She was sleeping. It was in the evening, like at 5. Her firstborn, she was like 18. She was in another bedroom. Okay, the dresses I had, they were not black like these. They bought me some ugly dresses. They are the ones whom I used to put on when I was working. Those people, Ugandans, they told me, can you get a black dress and even its cover? I went on the top of the house. This abaya was there. I knew it was there, and it was for my boss. I brought it. I went downstairs. I put it on. I picked up a bag in my room. It had some little documents, because I had my Interpol inside there, and the money. That's $200. Then after getting out of the gate, covered even the head, I start running away.
I told her where I can meet her was outside my camp. The condition of my company was we should not go outside the camp. I risked. I said, okay, let what is going to happen, let it happen, and I see it. But I must die when I'm trying to rescue these people. It was very dangerous because they used to bomb outside our camp. So I had to put on even body armor and helmet, then even my weapon, then I drive outside the camp.
I ran away, and some Arabs even, they saw me, but they didn't mind, and I got a taxi. I told that Arab man, and for him, he knew English. I told him, do you know a place called Flying Man? Can you take me there? Then he said, yeah. The moment I reached into the taxi, I called these Ugandans, whom I was communicating with. I told them that I have managed to escape. I'm coming, I'm already in the taxi. They said, good. Then the man drove me checkpoints. We passed through 4 checkpoints. The first checkpoint, they told me that, hey, where is your passport? Where is your passport? I told the checkpoint people that my passport is with my brother, and it is at Flying Man. That's where I'm going. They said, okay, go. Then the second one, they asked me the same thing. I showed them my paper. You know, those Arabs, they don't know how to read English. Okay, they say, okay, go. Then the third one, they said, no, this one black, Americana. They took us, okay, get out of the car. I was very scared. They were going to take me back to the family. Then after getting out of the car, they asked that Arab, how come she doesn't have a passport? I told them that I'm from Sudan. Then they left me. Then the fourth one, another checkpoint, there were these Arab men. They said, oh, this one, hey, I know this one. She goes, she comes back. She goes, she comes back. I think that man mistaken me with someone else. Then they said, okay, go. Then after going, I asked this driver that, is there any other checkpoint? Then the driver told me, no, this is Airport Street. We are there. We are already there. Then I reached there. Some welcomed me. I just cried because it's like I had met my family.
So this was July 4th. I went off to walk down to dinner, and before I came back, one of the American supervisors called me on my cell phone and said, hey, you know one of those women that we were talking about, she's here. I said, here, like in Camp Slayer? No, she's here in your office. And I said, how did she get there? How did she get onto the camp? He said, the Ugandans brought her on, which, of course, was against every physical security measure out there, but the Ugandans did what they felt was right, and it was Samuel who actually went out to the Flying Man, which was outside of our camp, picked her up and brought her back into the camp through the checkpoints. I really thought I was going to be in trouble, to be honest with you. And what I thought I was going to do at the time was go and do some research and find out what can we do, where can we put them, you know, get approvals. But with her in my office, that was done for me. So that was an evening of July 4th. In the morning of July 6th, 2 more Ugandan women were on their way in. Samuel came and told me.
One of those women was Prosy.
As we entered the base, we saw very many Ugandans. I was yet to find out that there were like 2,000 in that base. We really felt relieved, and we were very happy, but instead we started crying, and we knew at least we had been rescued.
I felt at this point I'm going to have to tell my commander what's going on, because it's not just one person, there's 2 more, and then Samuel was talking about more. And so I sent up on our secure email what we call a spot report. Sent it to him, copied the deputy commander, who was my direct boss, and I know he also passed it up to his boss, General Petraeus. When I came back in early the next morning and checked my secure email, there was an email from the JAG, from the military lawyer. And I thought immediately what it was going to be was something along the lines of like, they have no reason to be here, they shouldn't be here, you shouldn't have brought them on the camp. And I was quite surprised. It was quite the opposite. It was, we will do anything we can to support you. We are going to request temporary refuge for these women, and then they will be under the full protection and authority of the United States military.
In this way, Samuel and Ted were able to help 14 Ugandan women to escape. Ted contacted the Iraqi police, who told him that human trafficking isn't a crime in their country. So he looked to find an organization to repatriate them. The US Embassy couldn't help as the women weren't Americans. Ted says he had no response at all from the Ugandan government, and NGOs were only able to give out information.
I even called the US State Department on human trafficking, and I talked to a woman there and explained what was going on, and she's like, and had no answer for it. And I said, I don't need awareness of human trafficking. I'm looking at 14 women who have been trafficked that I need to get back to their country. And finally, I got an email from the International Organization of Migrants, and a man by the name of Thayer Issam came and interviewed the women, spoke with them, and he was able to finally start the process of getting them home.
Lieutenant Colonel Ted Lockwood. I'm Anna Cavell, and in this week's assignment on the BBC World Service, I've been looking into the story of 147 Ugandan women who've been lured to work in Iraq. Prosy, Agnes and 12 other women returned to Uganda in August of 2009. But what about the scores of other women who'd also gone to Iraq? Most of them have never been heard of again. To find out where the women are and who's responsible for them, I looked for answers in the Ugandan capital, Kampala. I've come to Parliament to meet an opposition MP called Hussein Chanjo. I first came across Hussein almost 2 years ago when he was raising the issue of women trafficked to Iraq with the government. He's one of the few politicians bold enough to talk about corruption, and it's corruption that he believes is the cause of this problem. How do you then, as a Ugandan politician, feel that because Uganda is getting a reputation for sending mercenaries abroad?
We have very many private security firms in Uganda, and every serious private security firm has a heavy hand of a senior government minister or a powerful general. And nobody can question, because the people who are supposed to be answering are powerful. And in Uganda, powerful people don't answer questions.
But why is there no political will? It seems extraordinary that politicians are happy to see women from Uganda being sold like commodities and not do anything to stop that from happening.
These are monarchical republics. These are kings governing countries in the name of republicans, but they are kings. This is why you'll find a head of state, his wife is a minister, his son is a commander in the army, brother-in-law is a minister of foreign affairs, and so on and so forth. And when you go into the entire spectrum of security, Minister of Defense, Minister of State for Internal Affairs, Minister of Security, are all inclined to the president. And it puts the general public at bay. They begin to surrender.
The women say they were hired by a Kampala-based company called Uganda Veterans. The issue became a scandal in Uganda, and the government withdrew their licence to export labour. So I was surprised to find that the company was relicensed in December last year. I interviewed the company's managing director, Colonel Matola, who seemed to know very little about what had become of the women sent to work in Iraq. In fact, he didn't even know how many women his company had sent, and he had to call his assistant into the room to ask.
We sent about 30 of them, and some of them came back. Actually, most of them came back. Others were okay, and they remained there. Our procedure is we look for people here, send them there to our agent, and these ladies have a direct contract with these companies, these agents. They just brief us of what is going on. And as of late, as I said, that time I was not the managing director. As of late, we haven't even had any communication from them, and the government stopped us from sending anybody to Iraq.
Because I think the newspapers reported saying there were 150 in Iraq.
It was not that number. We just sent 30. Charimpa, come 1 minute. Iraq.
147.
The 140? Sure. Sorry. According to records, it is 147.
And do you know how many of them have been returned to Uganda?
Most of them, but we don't have the exact number.
But since they were your employees and you had recruited them, do you plan to give them any kind of compensation for their ordeal?
They are not our employees, because we recruit them and they make a contract. They have got contracts with companies on the other side. So, and we have some contract with of course we have to look after them and see that they are being treated well. But really the contract is not between us, the Uganda veterans, and the girls. They have a direct contract, and they sign these contracts between our agents there and the girls directly.
At one time, the export of people from Uganda contributed more to GDP than anything else, more even than coffee and cotton combined. It's an enormously profitable business, and there are accusations that the only people awarded licenses to export manpower are those closely connected to government. I interviewed the Minister for Labour, Gabriel Opio. He told me that the owners of the company which sent Prosy and Agnes to Iraq are important to the governing NRM party.
So, Colonel Mudola is one of the members of the veteran. At our level, we meet them at various political meetings, and he's a member of the party hierarchy. So you need to handle him so that he doesn't spoil the atmosphere when you are going for political meetings.
Despite not wanting to create any unpleasantness for himself with the owners of Uganda veterans, the minister did become alarmed when I told him about Mary, the woman still trapped in Baghdad, and he called for an aide to be brought in to answer questions. I've spoken to another woman who went to Iraq in April 2009. She says that she is suffering from hypertension and depression, that she's been raped, and that she's not permitted to leave, that Uganda veterans have told her that if she wants to leave Iraq, she has to raise another $1,000 in order to pay her way home. She's been begging them to come home. She says that she's very sick.
Is Milton coming?
He's right now presenting on the same paper.
Yeah, you call him. You want me to go there myself? Please, get him here. If not, I'm going to burst into that and get him here.
So in the case of this woman who's still in Iraq, is there anything that you here at the Ministry of Labour...
No, first of all, you have to investigate if it's true. I don't want to commit on the air that I'm going to do. First of all, we want to commit to what we need to find out is to get this company, it's Kano Mudola, to tell us whether the other lady who is also working with her, to tell us where this lady is there, and if it's there, we can get her out as a government.
I'm scared. I've been in for 2 years. Oh my God.
Within 10 days of recording this interview, Mary had been returned to Uganda without explanation. If it hadn't been for Samuel Tumwesigye and Ted Lock...
Well, I tell you what, if that doesn't break your heart, I don't know what will. I wanted to play that on my program for the reason that of what we're talking about here today. You will have, I'm down to my last 45 minutes here on the air, so if you'd like to call in and be a part of the discussion, we are down to our last 45 minutes of airtime here with the American Connection. You know, when I opened up the program and we talked about betrayal, if there is any other reason for betrayal, to know that it is true and that it does exist, this story is one of betrayal. Betrayal against a people who, a group of women who believed and trusted in their government and trusted in the people that the government put in place to help them find jobs abroad or whatever. That did not happen. Some of the story, as you followed it, you understand that the government had a large part in it. People in high positions and high power, you don't ask them questions. This is something that happened at the very, very top, which we know the sitting president probably was aware of or knew that it took place. Even after this interview and even after investigations for this company to be relicensed, why would that even happen to the Ugandan citizens and these women? You know, we were talking about it's exactly what Barack Obama said about the arc of moral, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And what direction is that bending in? What are we doing to make sure that it's bending in the right direction? You know, I'm thankful for the fact that she found someone that was willing to help her, because in a foreign country like that, where you have rules and regulations and guidelines, it's very, very difficult to get people to help you. But this is the thing. This president and his family and all those that rule under him to do these type of things, these type of atrocities against women and the youth. These are the youth, educated people who want to go abroad and work, or some maybe not so, but still want to go abroad to work to make money. They will not bear the fruit of this at all, because these stories will continue to get out, these stories will continue to be heard, and these are the stories we will continue to bring to you, the Ugandan citizens, whether you're in the country or whether you are those in the diaspora, because these are the things that you need to hear. These are the things that you need to know that are going on and taking place in the government against Ugandan women, against the Ugandan people. And for cover-up after cover-up, for everyone to try to say they don't know, I mean, for her to have to get him in 2 and 3 times to ask him about the number of women, what was happening, how many are home, and all of these things, he knew all of that information when she was asking it. Everyone tries to pass it down to the next person. And of course, that young guy that kept coming in to answer the questions answered them truthfully. May not have a job today as we know of, but he answered the questions truthfully. And we have to ask ourselves as Ugandans, you know, why the betrayal? Why would you do anything to help the government continue to demoralize the Ugandan people? They knew what was going to happen to these girls when they sent them there. They knew very, very well what was going to happen to these girls when they sent them there. But they did not care. If you can, any way that someone can make money, corruption or otherwise, they will. Not even caring or having any sense of what needs to be done or what's going to happen to these girls when they leave. And for the homeowner, I mean, we've talked about slavery. We've talked about a lot of what's going on in Uganda. They are still living in the 1800s. Because a lot of what happened to slaves in the United States of America in the 1800s is what's happening to Ugandan citizens here in the 21st century. And these things can no longer be silenced. These things have to be told. These stories have to be put out there on the airwaves to bring people in, to help people to understand what the Ugandan people are fighting against. These Ugandan citizens are fighting against a government that at any cost will do whatever they need to keep them quiet or keep them at bay. And what are we doing? What are we doing to bend that arch in the direction of justice for these people? And I'm very, very thankful that, that United States of America, that camp there did not send her back and did not turn her away. Because they know. One of the things in the United States of America that we know and understand and is becoming a big movement here in the United States of America is human trafficking. We are very, very sensitized to it, and we know that it's happening, and you will very, very rarely find someone that will turn their back on human trafficking because we know that it exists. And for the homeowner of this individual that was so brave to be in this interview to say, my wife said you don't need rest, my wife said you don't get sick, my wife said you don't need anything, you just need to work, work, work. Even when we listen to that story, we know that that's impossible. And yet this man would tell this young person that before he rapes her. No one can work that way from day in to day out and not be tired and not get weary and not get sick. But they dehumanize these people. The people that have gone over in these trafficking, these companies that are sending these Ugandan women over, they're desensitized to this. They have no emotional connection to these women. None whatsoever. Even though they know what is going to happen to these women, they do not care. It is all a part of corruption. Where can we make money? How can we make money? And we just talked about it in the first hour of this program. Youth are 50% of Uganda. 50%. So they are thinking if we send 150 women or 147 women off in trafficking, no one's going to miss them because after all, they are 50%. It's a large group of people. And not only are these people being sent off for slave trafficking, they are also being sent off for their organs. Some of these countries buy people and bring them in, and their organs are all taken. They take the heart, they take the lungs, they take the kidney, they take the liver, they take everything. And the medical society in some of these countries, they know that these things are happening. And they're saving people's lives off of a country of people that the world just seems to have forgotten about. Well, I'm here to say, here on the American Connection, and to all of you who are listening to my voice, that Uganda is a country in crisis. And what's going on inside the walls of that country are real. These are people with lives and loved ones who love them. And they're disappearing, and these things are happening to them. We were asked a while back by a young person who was told a similar story, that they could go outside of the country and get jobs, and they were promised good jobs and whatever, and we told her to get that nonsense out of your head, that what is going to happen to you is not going to be good, and if you decide to do this, you will disappear, and we would never know where you are or see you again. And because of that, she was able to save 3 other people who were ready to go and sign up for such programs. And right here, we're only talking about 150 people, but I guarantee you there's far, far more. Because there's no accountability. One thing about the United States of America, and even in other countries in the free world, there's accountability for people. Of course, most places will say the person has to be missing for 24 hours, but after 24 hours, reports can be filled out, and people go looking for these people. Where are they? What happened to them? Cases are open. Police are engaged. Investigations take place to find out where this person is and what's going on. But in Uganda, there is no accountability, and there is no one to go to say someone is missing. You fill out a report, they throw it in a file, and that's the end of the story. No one investigates. Nobody cares. And the same way that they're desensitized from the human aspect of these people, they want the world to be that way as well. And we can no longer sit aside and allow these things to happen, not in the United States of America and not anywhere. At any point in time in our lives, if we have the opportunity to save one person, we need to do what we can do to save that one person. We ask all the questions later. We find out the stories and what we need to do to bring attention to this, but we do those things. I even commend the reporter that felt the need to go in and investigate this. Because right now, everybody's life is at risk. I don't know anyone that really feels comfortable going into the walls of Uganda to find the information that needs to be brought to the attention of other people, other than those that are in Uganda who can somehow get the information out to the rest of the world to say this is what's happening to us and this is what's going on inside the walls here in Uganda. We can no longer turn our backs on the people in Uganda. We cannot betray them the way they are being betrayed in the country by their own countrymen. We have to stand up to say enough is enough and this is wrong, and what are we going to do to move forward to help to free and bring justice to the Ugandan people. I mean, right now you've got people in Uganda who are struggling. Health, education services are non-functioning. Even if you have money to go to get things done or taken care of, the systems are falling apart. They're deteriorating daily under the government. The inability to feed families, to get to school, to get to college, to get to universities, all of this, everything is dying and everything is drying up in the country because of the sitting president and the way in which he views the Ugandan people, the way he sees himself and his family, and the only people that need to be in power is him. He continues to tell the Ugandan people time and time again that he is the person to govern the country and that they should vote for him again in 2016. However, we know that all the people are already standing against that, which is one of the things that is angering him, because people are saying there is no justice. The elections is not what's going to fix the problem in Uganda, and they understand the corruption and that this is the way that they need to go to get him out of office. The state of corruption in Uganda is indescribable. It's just absolutely indescribable, and it is what the downfall of the country. It's why they are where they're at today. Even if you look at the leadership, even political leadership, those who are put in positions to help the people of Uganda, the unemployment is destroying the Ugandan youth. And this video explains that because of that, these are the things that are happening. These girls are turning to these type of things because there is no jobs. There is nothing. Unemployment is destroying the Ugandan youth. That is why they're starting to drink. That is why they're doing drugs. That is why they're trying to get out of the country in any means whatsoever, even if it leads them into situations like this, because there is nothing else there. And the government's not doing anything to rectify this. The government's not doing anything to correct this. There are no jobs in Uganda. When I first started the American Connection, I talked about a lot of programs, different things that needed to be put in place, how we could help Ugandans to come here to go to school, to how they could look for grants, how they could look for scholarships, just different things to get out of Uganda to come abroad and be able to study. 2 weeks into doing that, I realized the problem was way, way bigger than that. And the American Connection has now become something other than that. We have a call. Let me go ahead and take this caller. Caller, are you there?
Hello, Mama Brenda.
Good morning, Dorothy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. Sometimes these programs get a little hard for me sometimes, even though we have to get the information out there. But, I am good.
Okay. Are we on air?
Yes. You can go ahead.
Oh, okay. First of all, I would like to thank everybody who is listening, and thank you so much, Ms. Brenda, for everything you are doing for us. I just have a few points to make. I have a few minutes here. All what I wanted to say is to call call my, fellow Ugandan citizens. I'm just calling them from a position of strength because everything you've said is true. When you say that Mr. Museveni, whatever he's doing, is going to determine the outcome, for sure it will. Because for me, there isn't anything that he hasn't not yet done. You can't sit there and say that, you know what, maybe wait until he does ABCD and the people of Uganda, they will really, really, really be, annoyed. He has done everything. So if he say that they're going to wake up one morning and they close the Forex Bureau, let him do that, okay? Because it is starting to, not even starting. This has been happening for a long time. Before, he used to do things behind closed doors. Now he doesn't even seem to care anymore. So if they start to arrest people who are receiving calls from their beloved one abroad, because when you talk to somebody, they tap their phones all the time. They listen to the conversation. So if they think that is the best, let them go ahead and do it. For me, as Ms. Brenda already stated, we just need unity and do what we are supposed to do instead of, making people suffer for a long time, because he's not going to back up, okay? So you tell me, when I call my beloved one and you arrest them and you torture them, because for me, that is one way to make people from the diaspora pay. They get these people, they arrest them, they know they haven't done anything. But you, when you hear, you talk to so and so, your mom, whatever, they are in prison, then they ask for such big amounts of money, and we pay. That is another way they make money. But if Mr. Museveni said they're going to wake up and close the Forex Bureau, say, okay, let him go ahead and do that. Because we know Uganda will not even stand. Okay? So, if, as we are talking right now, our sisters and brothers are being sold, what else are we waiting for? The MPs, the NRM MPs, if they can't get the corruption, the big amounts of money, the pampering they are used to, and they have to get up and go to the State House and come back empty-handed, and they tell them, oh, you are overwhelming the president. This is the PAC. This is the MOP, which belongs to the ruling party that have been deciding everything. They vote when they don't even know the motion is moving which way. For them, their job is to vote yes. So right now, if they can't get what they want, let it be that way, so that people get to wake up and also taste the coffee. Okay? Because for us in the diaspora, we just need to realize how much power we have. We need unity. We are more than in number. We have all the power in all areas. Okay? For those who are spying on people abroad and even in Uganda, time will come when there isn't so much money to give and corrupt everybody. And remember, those people will not be serving faithfully. So, as Mr. Museveni stands, every single choice he makes every day, it is letting him down. He's letting himself down. The question is, we Ugandans outside, what do we need to do? That is the only question. Because right now it doesn't matter what he decides to do or not. Either way, he's doomed. If he does, or if he doesn't. He has crossed the line that he cannot turn around and say, oh, I didn't know, or ABCD. No. It has passed that point. So the boat is sinking. Those who want to sink on it, they can stay on the boat. But the way things are rolling, it is a matter of time. So for me, I'm just calling on fellow Ugandans. We need to unite and end this suffering. If he has benefited in anything, is to kill, to cause suffer, to leave husbands without, wives, to leave wives without husbands, to leave children without parents, because he has done a good job of killing. Okay? So, what comes next is what we need to do. if he said they're going to cut off their phones, I remember President Obama has warned him before, tapping into the internet, cut off telephones, turn off electricity as they are doing already. We are aware of all these things, but we are going to continue to apply pressure, and he will continue to do whatever he thinks he's very smart, and he will continue to do what he's been doing. But Uganda is ours, and we intend to take it back, and we will. So we just need to realize what we need to do sooner. The sooner the better. And we will do that. There is no reason why they can sell our brothers and sisters. But let the world know they did these things in the darkness. People were poisoned. Mr. Chanjo was poisoned. Now the whole world can sit and listen and hear. So the decision, my fellow Ugandans, is ours. Ms. Brenda, thank you very, very much. God bless you. So we Ugandans, we get up and claim our country back, and we will take it back. It is just a question of when. So when we get together, that will be, and it will happen because the good Lord knows where the true justice lies, and things are starting to open up. Everything that open up is in the favor of the people of Uganda. Abroad and back home, we get together and do what we need to do. Thank you very much, the audience. Miss Brenda, we love you. Our engineer who doesn't even rest. Thank you very much. We love you.
I know. Thank you so much, Dorothy. Did we have another call on? Is there another caller there? Okay, I think we probably dropped him. But if he wants to, he can call back in because the line is open. So much of what Dorothy is sharing there is right and true, and I know that it comes from her heart. There is a lot of things that are happening in the darkness that light is starting to be shed on, and we have to make sure that those things are heard. We have to make sure that you in the diaspora know what's going on. We have to make sure that our American audience, our European audience, our audience in Canada, South Africa, and around the world knows what's happening in the walls of Uganda, because we can no longer set aside and allow these things to happen to innocent people who have done nothing wrong, who live their lives each and every day struggling, trying to figure out how they're going to feed their families, how they're going to pay fees, how they're going to get their families to school, how they're going to afford health care if someone gets sick and things start to happen. And to go in the darkness to take these people away, the light comes and it sheds. When we come forward, we shed light on what's going on. And Dorothy is right in saying, he's threatened to shut off phones, shut off electricity, remove the people so that they can't be connected to the outside world. And she's right in saying Barack Obama said that will not happen, that you will not be allowed to do that, not without it being looked into. We've turned our eyes away from too many things, and the atrocities that have happened to humanity because of it. No one wants that blood on their hands anymore. No one. And, he's a modern day Hitler, as far as I'm concerned, with the way that he treats the Ugandan people. You kill, and you don't even care. You don't care that you're leaving widows, you're leaving children orphaned. You don't care for the parents who these are their children that you're sending abroad and to be slaves abroad, whether sex slaves or not, even to go there and to work and to do these things. Even the people, it saddens me, the world that we live in, that a man would pay $3,500 for a person and bring her there to take care of his home and clean everything and think that she's supposed to do that for the rest of her life. And never rest, and never sleep, and never have anything. The God that I serve, I could not do that. I can't justify taking away someone else's life to make my life better. If you have someone who does those things for you, well then, because it's all around the world, those people are like everyone else. They go to work in the morning and they go home in the afternoon to their families. We know here in America, after slavery was over, the only thing that African Americans really knew how to do were to be maids, take care of babies, take care of households, work in the fields. the things that we had done in slavery. Those are the only things that we knew how to do. So that became a way of living for us, but it became a way of living where we were able to make a living. We were able to make money. And it was not so much that we were working for someone else, but we were working for ourselves. And back then, people used their little bit of money they had to educate their children, so that their children would have better lives. And through the decades, children have been educated and educated and educated and moved forward. And that just wasn't in slavery and African Americans. That was in, the Native Americans, through the migrant workers that came here, through China when their people started coming to U.S. They even had rights. I mean, it's been a progression along that everyone has bettered themselves. They haven't gotten worse for it. So that type of work saved a civilization of people after slavery because it was all that we knew how to do. But even the slave owners and those that we worked for in slavery, even those people understood and knew that there was a work day and these people needed Sundays off. They were able to go to church and fellowship with their family. They worked until dark and then they had dinner and lives with their families. It wasn't just working them until they dropped dead in a field, until they dropped dead somewhere. It was being in touch with the fact that they were human. And what's happening now is that part of things have been taken away. People have this mentality that people can work hard like that. And they're like, oh, you people don't need sleep. You people don't need rest. You people can work all the time. I don't understand why they would tell the Ugandan young lady that, because put yourself in that person's shoe. If you can't do that, surely then that person can't do that. And if you have a job and you work 8 hours a day, imagine how tired you are when you come home. Yet you feel that this person can just continue to work and work and work throughout the night and not go to sleep or not have rest. It is just amazing. And the sad part about this whole thing is that this is a government that condones this and allows this to happen. Because you hear it from the report that these are high up people, high up people, and you don't ask questions. And some of these are companies that are owned by the sitting president himself, family members. And they understand and they know that these things are happening. When I hear on one of the programs where the sitting president said that, there in Uganda, said that great leaders have been appointed by God. And he feels like what he's doing, he's been appointed by God to do. Well, the other side of that story is when they didn't obey and they didn't follow the laws and the rules that God had set up for them to follow, they fell, and they fell hard. And your fate is going to be no different from those in biblical times if that's where you're going to justify what you are doing. Even Roman emperors and great leaders fell, and they fell hard when they didn't do what needed to be done for the people. Corruption can survive, but it can't survive forever. There's something that happens there in the heart of a man when he becomes that callous and that hard, where he cares for no one except those who in his immediate family. But the rest of the world and the rest of the society in which you have been elected, so you say, to govern and run, that you're not doing anything to help the people or move the people forward. Yet you feel that you deserve another chance to continue this, to continue to do what? I'm wondering what it is that he will continue to do and what it is he will start to correct if he's allowed to go in office again. But we already know that this president has made promises after promises after promises, and none in which he stood by. Even right now, with the monies that are given to Uganda from other countries to help stabilize them and move them forward, they're getting half of that money in their next budget year. Half of what they're normally used to getting to, they're going to get this year for their budget because of the corruption. Because when governments give and countries give money, they're given money for progression, for things to move forward. When they see that they've given millions of dollars for infrastructure, for education, for health, for all of the things, the well-being of the citizens, and none of those things are being done, and there's no accountability for it, and they go into these countries and they see that where is the money going? What are you doing with what I've given? They realize at a point that they have to be accountable to their own constituents, to their own country, to their own people. And that starts to dwindle away. And who does it dwindle away for? It hurts the Ugandan people more so than it hurts the president, because anything that he gets, he's going to make sure that he's taken care of first. And the Ugandan people will continually be left on the sideline. And they will not be helped, and no one will move forward to help move them forward. And so he will get less and less, which will make his job harder and harder to stay in power, because all of the people that are serving under him in leadership positions, the only reason they've stayed in those positions is because of the money and the corruptions that they've been able to get. And when that money and that is gone, they won't be there either. Whether they should be a part of the next regime that comes in and power, I think that everyone in power right now in Uganda needs to run for all their offices again, and that investigations need to take place to see what part they had in corruption. Because in moving the country forward, it's not just about the sitting president and what he's done to destroy the country. Little by little, day by day, he has literally destroyed the country through, in land grabbing. We didn't even talk about that. And the land grabbing that's happening, the majority of that is his family and his family members that are doing that are just throwing people off of their property and just taking things. They're just taking what they want. All of that needs to be given back to the Ugandan people under the new regime. Anybody who's had land taken from them under the last 30 years, and in this regime, those things they can bring their claims into the new regime. Those things need to be investigated, and people need to be made whole again. They need to be given back what was taken from them. The government doesn't own anything. Those things need to be given back. And this is the fall of his family members. They will not have a place in Uganda under any type of new regime, because these are things that have to be investigated. Anyone who's sitting in power in Uganda now that feels like they are in a position to run the country, they're not. Not the way others feel, not the way that people are looking at what's going on in Uganda under the corruption that has spread and festered throughout all of Uganda. Everything needs to be picked apart piece by piece by piece. And the new regime of government that comes into that country needs to, like I said earlier in the first half, needs to invite other countries to come in and help them to liberate and send the country in the direction that it needs to go. This is how you have an open policy where you leave no room for corruption, because it's not 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 100 people that are making decisions for the country. It's the country as a whole that is making its own decisions. Here in the United States of America, and I know in other countries as well, we have certain elections that come about that things can be put on the docket to vote for. And this is what needs to happen in the new democracy there in Uganda. Every year, because the country is in such ruins, there needs to be an election about certain laws and certain things that need to be looked at, need to be restructured, need to be redefined as to what works for the Ugandan people, and allow the Ugandan people to vote for what they want. The time is over for other people to make decisions about how Uganda needs to be run. And those that are in power now that feel like they are in a place where they could better run the country, the time for that is over. It is time to give the country back to the Ugandan people. Allow them to vote as we do in all other free worlds, in other countries. Allow them to vote for the change that they want to see happen within their country. Allow them to have their voice. Give the people their voices back. If there is to be a change in the Constitution and we're looking at a way of restructuring and doing things, some of those need to be made by the lawmakers, of course, but some of those things need to be voted on by the Ugandan citizens, for the Ugandan people. Creating jobs and bringing infrastructure back into Uganda, there are companies waiting on the sidelines to go into Uganda to help bring jobs into that country, but because of corruption, they cannot make a move to come in to help the Ugandan people. Your sitting president knows that. The sitting president in Uganda knows that is true. But the only thing he is interested in is what will he get out of the deal. He's not interested in what will happen to the Ugandan people and how they will benefit from this. He's only looking at what he's going to get out of the deal. And the Ugandan people are tired of this. There are programs around the globe now that I talked about on the American Connection, where they're going into countries helping to set up a better education system. There are so many things that don't need to be left up to the government to try to figure out and structure. There are companies that are reputable that have been in Kenya, Sierra Leone, and all countries throughout Uganda, throughout Africa, helping to restructure their education system and giving them funding as a part of structuring and setting this up, allowing these countries to set their budgets, how much money can we put in education, and they're matching it. And then they're coming in and they're helping these people set up their education systems. These are the things that the Ugandan people need. This is the structure that needs to go into Uganda. It's working throughout the world. It's working globally everywhere. The only thing that's stopping Uganda from having these things is the sitting regime, the sitting president, and his need to rule and have power over the people. And these are the things that need to be taken back by the Ugandan people by standing up and saying, we will no longer tolerate this. We want to have the freedom and the liberties and the justices as everyone else in the world has. Uganda can turn itself around and be one of the greatest countries there in Uganda, on the continent of Africa. It has the resources. It has the people. It has the people in the diaspora that are willing to go back into the country to build it and make it greater than it has ever been. But this type of regime can never happen in Uganda again. They've got to have the structure of the people voting for what they want, working with a government that works for them, and allowing other people and other countries to come in and help to restructure and help them to be built into the country that we know that they can all be. And those in the diaspora, some of the most educated in all of Uganda, are willing and ready to go back into Uganda to work in structuring and helping to bring the country back to the Uganda that they loved when they grew up there with their parents. America has already said that it is ready and willing to work with those in the diaspora to bring and unite the Ugandan economic structure back to these countries to see how we can work to better those countries. To see how we can work to better help Uganda to move forward, not just in its own economic growth, but in the economic growth of the United States of America, UK, and other countries as well, through change and exchange. We can do it. It can happen. Uganda can be greater than it has ever been. Uganda can be greater than the Ugandan you remember it being before you left your country of birth to live in another country to somehow help your families back home. So it's not about this government that's in now. It's about everybody coming back into Uganda, some structure being set up to make those in the diaspora want to come back into Uganda, to set up structure to show and help Uganda move forward. Uganda needs to be given back to all the people, not some of the people. Everybody has been hurt by this regime. Everybody has lost something because of this regime. You have millions of Ugandans living out in the diaspora who would love to go back home into a functioning society where they knew that they could get jobs and live in a country that infrastructure is being set up, and the country's moving forward. Rebuilding and building up the hospitals, putting medical staff in place to train the medical staffs that are already in hospitals, bringing directors on board to set up and restructure the hospitals in the way they work, making them greater and better than they ever were, setting up labs, setting up technologies for the students who are studying in the universities there in Uganda to come and get training into today's society in the 21st century of how the world is functioning globally, and allow those students, set up programs that guarantee these students jobs and placements so that they can leave the country, can be educated, and come back into their country. You know, the hardest things that Ugandans have now, and I share this on one of my other American Connections programs, a lot of Ugandans are being offered scholarships by universities, great universities outside of the country. But the holdup and the reason they're being turned down and not allowed to come out and study, even though they have scholarships that will support them 100%, is because there's no structure that shows that they have any reason to come back to the country. In order to help the youth, in order to help those that are in the university settings now, and in order to help move the country forward, we've got to show stability within the country as a whole. No individual person should have to show stability, whether they're going to come back to the country or not, in order to be able to leave the country for higher education. The structure needs to start that the country runs better on a whole, that these students that are leaving for education are promised jobs in the hospitals, in the government, in accounting firms, in the banks, in the agricultural system, in engineering and technology, especially in the IT programs. Some of the greatest knowledge that they will be able to pick up is not in Uganda. It's going to be outside of the country, and then they come back into their country to make the country greater than it is because of what they've learned. Under the regime and under the way the country is ran now, nobody trusts the Ugandan students, the Ugandan youth, to come out, study, and then come back. We've got to make that stability there, that no one will be turned down for monies. We know abroad in all sectors, there is money for foreign students. The money for foreign students is there for scholarships. Ugandan students have qualified for some of these monies, but have not been able to leave the country and cash in on that higher learning because the government, because of them being turned down when they go in with their papers, because they don't see stability as to why these people would ever return. That is the saddest excuse you can ever give a student with high hopes of leaving the country to educate themselves. We've got to bring back infrastructure. We've got to bring back an education system. We have to bring back a country that there is no threat if these people leave. In the United States of America, in Bermuda, in the UK, in Canada, in any parts of the global world, students leave their countries all the time to come abroad and study. A lot of them on 100% scholarship rides. A lot of them may have to pay a portion of their funds. But they leave and there's no threat of them not coming back into their countries. This is what needs to be set up there for the Ugandan youth. And this is the direction in which we want to send the country. The American Connection has tried time and time again to help these people get on board, to move them in the direction that they need to go. But we fail time and time and time again because we cannot work and we cannot help them in the system in which they thrive in today. But we definitely don't want to see the youth being sold into slavery, into human trafficking, being sold for their organs, for people to harvest their organs for other people to live, but they die. You take a healthy person and you take their heart for someone else, a healthy person who has done nothing. The only thing that they've done is they've been raised and they live in a system that does not see them and treat them with the humanity that they deserve. And they know that they're selling these people off for body parts or for whatever they're selling them out into the other sectors for. And there's no accountability. Nobody's questioning where these people are, where these people are going. Yeah, the Ugandan people are standing up for their rights, and they're standing up against this government to say, we do not want to be a part of this government. And people who are anti against this regime, anti against this government, anti against the sitting president in Uganda right now are starting to be tortured because they're not coming out in the street saying, I'm not going to do this or that or whatever. They're just saying, I don't support the government. And simply because of that, they're being used as examples and being tortured so that other people won't feel that same way. We've got to reach back and we've got to help. Supportfadu.org. Support Voice of Uganda Radio. Do whatever you can. As Obama said, it does not bend on its own. It bends because each of us, in our own way, put our hands on the arch and we bend it in the direction of justice. Thank you so much for being a part of the American Connection and Voice of Uganda Radio this morning on this sensitive subject and topic. Where do we go from here is up to us. What part of justice do we want to be a part of is up to us. Where we put our hands, where we put our hearts, where we put our minds, where we put our money, where we put our focus is up to us. But the Ugandan people are begging us daily for help. They can no longer live in the atrocities in the way that they're living now, being tortured and beaten. And the stories, we may not even know all the stories now. I remember when all the stories came out in South Africa after the torture and the beatings and everything that had happened. It was horrific. It was saddening, and it was very, very horrific. How many people will we allow to continue to suffer and be beaten and die in the walls of Uganda because we stand idly by and say, we'll leave it to someone else to bring justice to help the Ugandan people? Thank you so much to all of you for being a part of the program today, for allowing us to come into your homes and on your airways to just share our concerns and our beliefs of what needs to happen in the direction we need to go to help the Ugandan people. I am Miss Brenda, and you have been listening to the American Connection. Thank you, God bless you, and have a great day.